Welcome back from the break, everyone, to Pivotal Change for our final segment of the night. And I once again have a very good friend of mine. I'd like to introduce everybody to Dustin Campbell, who is currently the preacher at the Broadway Church of Christ in Paducah, Kentucky. But he has a very interesting corporate background. He comes from the business world. He is not your run-of-the-mill preacher, as most people would think. And he has a wonderful background, a wonderful leadership mind, which is one of the main reasons I want him to come on here today. He is great at helping people find that pivotal change in their life that's going to help them become that better version of themselves. So, Dustin, I appreciate you coming on the show, sir.
Man, thanks for having me, Ryan, and thanks for the introduction. It's quite.
Well, it's true, and I know you would never brag about yourself, so I've got to do it. So, one of the things I want to do, we know we're always bound by the clock, so I want to just kind of straight jump into some of these questions here, and I really want to talk a little bit about your transition in leadership in the beginning. And you came from the corporate world, so I'd like for you just to share the specifics of your transition, about the mindset, what made you change, and what struggles and things you overcame to actually switch from corporate world to ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was put in a very fortunate position where my family had a very lucrative business in fire life safety and HVAC. And, naturally, I was going to take over the family business and go about my life that way, I guess. Went to school, got a business degree, love business, love leadership, love people, and went into the world. And it was one of those transitions where I was kind of torn. I've always had a strong relationship spiritually, and was working with the church and started working with the youth there in the church. I was also dealing with major anxiety in the fire life safety industry. It was quite pivotal in my life when you would get phone calls. I'm young, fresh out of college, and I'm already on blood pressure medication because it was just crazy, the stress that I was going through. And to be honest, the immaturity of being able to handle that anxiety during those moments, I wasn't there yet mentally and being able to prepare for those things. But I loved the work. I love people. I love leading people and trying to make them better and having an influence on them. So I didn't want to get completely out of the people business. And I always say the people business because I think anybody who's in a leadership position is in the people business. The greatest leaders of all time love people, and people love them. So I think the transition maybe not as big as maybe some may think. I think probably some of the greatest classes and greatest lectures that I ever had that prepared me for ministry were in my business courses, because people are people, whether they're in the church or whether they're in a huge corporation somewhere. I think the transition in that is just understanding that people are going to be people wherever you're at, and understanding and your love and passion for people helps those transitions.
I love that. The people are people no matter where you're at. That's a great quote we can take away. And the transition, I think that most people can pull from your transition is that it's not as different as people would think. And you and I have talked a lot in the past about, when I went from cop to accountant, right? Most people think that's 180 different degrees from each other, but realistically, it's still the people business, like you said, and the crossover between the two was incredible. And so you mentioned a couple of things about, anxiety and some blood pressure medicine, things like that. Well, I know with the people that I coach and consult and meet all over the country that these leaders, these entrepreneurs, these business folk that are trying to inspire and do what you just said is have influence, they get that anxiety. They even have moments of failure. They worry about failure. So how important in overcoming the anxiety and the failure and the perceptions that the world and the pressures it throws at us is having some type of foundation outside of work life, some type of family or something outside of their team, community events, and a spiritual foundation. How important is that to the successful leaders you've seen?
Man, and I can't tell you I have it completely figured out yet. I tell you now that I got out of the fire life safety business because it was stressful. Really, it was immaturity. Because whenever you're leading people, there's going to be anxiety involved, especially, which I think the biggest point of leadership is having the passion for leadership. And when you have a passion for leadership, you're going to have anxiety because you want everything to work so well. And whether that's leading a congregation of or leading a business or a have a great passion for the people causes that anxiety. We want them to be well. We want the business to succeed. In my work now as a minister, I want souls to go to heaven. And so there's anxiety that comes with that. But I think a lot of the reasoning and the foundation or the answer to that question is, number one, maturity. I talk to a lot of young people. In fact, I just spent some time in Denver talking to a lot of young men going into leadership positions. And maturity is one of those things that you look at and you kind of take for granted. And I don't think as people in the field give those who are just getting into the field of leadership, because it does take growth. It takes maturity. I think on top of that, it takes a lot of self-confidence. Getting to the point of you knowing who you are, and that doesn't matter whether you're with your coworkers or with your family or by yourself somewhere, you are that person all the time. Obviously, being a minister, I want to go to the foundation of having some kind of spiritual aspect in your life.
Right.
I can't tell everybody where what that looks like in their life, but I know personally for myself, there has been major moments in the anxiety is overwhelming. I have God to be able to go to and know that He's there for my best interest. I don't know where that would put me during those stressful moments.
Let me jump in there real quick, Dustin, because that's a good point, because I mean, you're making multiple good points, but the one where you said, if I didn't have somewhere to go with my anxiety, my stress, my struggles, and you specifically mentioned going to God, which is perfect. Because I think, one, we do need people in real life to go to, whether that's a spouse or a best friend or an advisor or something like that. One of my principles of leadership is surrounding yourself with advisors. And one of the key advisors, in fact, the key advisor would be your faith and going to God. So let me transition just a little bit more. I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions before we got to cut to the end of the episode. But one thing that's already obvious to the viewers is that you're very good at messaging. You are sending clear messages to us about the impacts and the areas that we need to watch out for. So if I want to be an influential leader that can do better messaging, you literally do your messaging multiple times a week, 3-4 times a week, depending on the platforms and the classes and the sermons. How do you get that messaging across to those you lead? What points do we need to pay attention to really be an impactful messenger?
I think the number one thing that I tell everybody is consistency. People need to see you who you really are all the time. And I think there's so much of a fakeness in our culture, in our businesses, in our world today, that the same person sitting at the desk Monday through Friday is not the same people that sometimes we see on Saturday. So a level of consistency. Number two, a level of clarity. There needs to be a level of clarity in our leadership that when they see us, there's no doubt who we are and what we're trying to accomplish in our leadership. Not only that, but there shouldn't be any doubt in where we're leading them. And I think if we're leading with, not only do they know the person who's leading them, but they know where we're leading them to. And if we can keep our clarity and our consistency in check, I think, man, messages that we can portray as leaders is very clear for people to pick up on.
Okay, I want the audience to take just a minute. I often encourage the audience to watch this show with a pen and paper, and I hope you just wrote that down, that people need to have the consistency, and they're never going to have a problem following you if they know where they are being led. They have that vision, they have that clear, surmised message of where you are leading them. I can't overplay how important of a statement that was. Dustin, let me fling you one more quick question real quick, because we're pushed up against the time, and I know future episode to talk about more. But specifically, you deal with people from all walks of life, different cultures, ethnical backgrounds, rich, poor, everything in between. So sticking along with communication and influence, how do you develop a message and an impact on people from every walk of life, the vast differences that we have?
To the genuine core, everybody's the same. Humans are humans. We all have the same difficulties. We all have the same struggles. We all have the same interests. And when we can get down to that core, a teacher told me one time, when you speak to somebody and you're speaking to a wide variety of people, speak on a level where everybody can hear the message, whatever that message you're trying to convey, whether it's, hey, I'm leading you to this goal. We're leading the company to this prize. I'm leading you to heaven in my specific job. But I think sometimes we pick a specific group of people we want to cater to. And you can't do that in a large corporation because we don't know everybody's background like we should. I think second to that is a leader needs to know who he's talking to. One of the things in preaching, audience analysis, who am I speaking to? I'm going to speak differently to a room of 300 teenagers than I will to maybe a room of 300 mixed adults, because I'm going to try to hit them where they're at and in the space they're in. And I think if we don't know who we're speaking to, if we don't know how to adapt to who we're speaking to, sometimes we can't be clear in our communication of where we're leading them and why we're leading them in this direction.
I love that. Well, Dustin, this has been absolutely fantastic. Giving me an idea here. So if somebody obviously recognizes your wisdom and your ability, because you speak all over, and of course at church every Sunday, how can somebody get a hold of you and find Dustin Campbell? Say, hey, I want to get a hold of this guy. I want more of what he has to say. Where can we find you?
Well, we have a YouTube page. You could check out Broadway Church of Christ in Paducah, Kentucky on our YouTube page. You can go on and listen to some guy preach for 30 minutes, usually once a week. I hope and I pray that I give some wisdom and insight from God's word through that. You could also check out our website, BroadwayCoc.com. My phone number, my contact email, and all that stuff's on there. Man, I'm always welcome to questions, and I'm always willing to help people grow. I hope to grow in some of our conversations.
Outstanding. Dustin, thank you so much for coming on tonight. And thank you for everyone for watching. Remember, I want you to go out there and I want you to see the change and be the change. And we'll see you next time on Pivotal Change.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.